You really need to find something that works well for you, right? So energy management, when we talk about energetic containers, is it's less about like breaking down the amount of time to say, oh, for 30 minutes, I'm going to do this. I'm going to make sure that I always do my social media scheduling on Tuesday at 10:30 a.m. If this works for you, because it does work for a lot of folks, stick with it. Do what. Hey, my friends, welcome back to the podcast. Welcome back to the revolution. This week, we're talking about energy management, how it differs from time management, and I'm going to share a little bit of behind the scenes in what's been going on in my business in terms of energy management, burnout prevention offerings, and kind of some projects that I'm working on. So let's just dive in. Let me move some things around on my screen. So if you're watching on Patreon, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. Thank you so much for being a Patreon supporter. The memberships start at free. But if you join for $3 a month, you actually get some really cool resources too. So there's more about that at the end of the episode. Let's dive in. So let's look at what time management is to begin with, because if we really dive into what that term means, then we can say, okay, so we know what time management is. So this is how energy management differs. You with me? All right. So time management really involves organizing and planning your tasks throughout the day and throughout the week so that you can get things done, right? I think we all kind of know that. I am a huge proponent of work smarter, not harder, which is why I created energetic containers. So rather than blocking off time, I have created containers of energy and aligned creativity in my schedule. These containers align with your personal energy levels throughout the week. They allow you to get things done in a more efficient way with less effort on your part so that you're conserving your energy, you're fostering creativity, and you're taking care of yourself. Anyone can put energetic containers into practice in their calendar. And of course, if you're working for a larger company, there's going to be things like meetings and maybe appointments where you're seeing clients or patients if you're in the medical industry. However, there are ways to work with energetic containers throughout your workday and in your personal life. So everyone has a method, right? You've probably heard that there's like the 4 P's of time management: prioritizing, planning, productivity, and positivity. I do like the positivities there. It could also be the 3-3-3 method, right? So you spend 3 hours on your most important tasks, complete 3 smaller tasks that you've been avoiding, and work on 3 life maintenance tasks to kind of keep everything in order. This is a lot. This is a whole lot. However, time management is really helpful for a few reasons. There is less stress involved in your day, and to me, this is the most significant benefit. So less stress equals less likelihood of burning out, right? So we are big into that. Also, if you're less stressed, you're mentally and physically healthier, which is a win-win. Science is showing us that. Less stress, better physical, mental health. You have greater focus when you're doing things that are aligned with a time management approach. And what this looks like is, really focusing in on that one activity. So maybe you're using a Pomodoro, which I love. Pomodoros, if you're not sure, are 25-minute sprints of work followed by 5 minutes of doing something else. And so you can kind of clear your mind and then going back and doing another 25. The reason it's called Pomodoro is because it is named after the Italian word for tomato. Because the man who created the Pomodoro method actually used his mom's kitchen timer that's in the shape of a tomato, a Pomodoro, and used that timer to track his time management, his focus management, all of that. Another importance and benefit to time management is higher productivity. And I would say better productivity, quite honestly. So with good time management, you're able to prioritize your time better. You can plan your day better. So it supports what you need, really and truly. And then finally, increased energy, which sounds a little counterproductive because if you're not in a good energy management space, then your energy is going to be depleted. However, if you've got a system that's working well for you, you're able to really focus your energy and then move on and go do something else, right? So here's a few tips that I want to share with you. One of mine is the idea of big rocks versus small rocks. So if you have ever heard this story, you know exactly where this is coming from. So this idea comes from a professor who stood in front of their class with a bunch of different materials and a jar. So like think a pickle jar. But they had big rocks, medium-sized rocks, pebbles, sand, and water. And when they asked the class which items to put in first, there was a big difference in outcomes. If they started with the big rocks first, though, all the other things filled in the gaps. So even the water was able to have space within the jar. However, if they started with the small parts first, there would be no room for big rocks. So your big rocks are your important tasks. They also take more time, and that's okay. After you put them on your to-do list, then you want to add some small rocks to your day. Make sure you complete your big rocks first, and you're good to go. So your big rocks are the big, most important, even most complicated tasks. Do them first. A lot of times we put those things off because we're like, oh, I'm just going to do a bunch of these little things. No. Instead, take your big rock task and break that into smaller sections because that will give us the dopamine hit of going after those small rocks first. But it'll actually be in service of that big rock. You really need to find something that works well for you, right? So energy management, when we talk about energetic containers, is it's less about like breaking down the amount of time to say, oh, for 30 minutes, I'm going to do this. I'm going to make sure that I always do my social media scheduling on Tuesday at 10:30 a.m. If this works for you, because it does work for a lot of folks, stick with it. Do what works. However, if you are a little neurospicy, if you are a highly sensitive person, if you are an empath, if you work with a lot of different people throughout your day, you really need to look at your week as a whole entity and to see what days and times work best for you to complete certain tasks. So, for instance, my schedule used to look like no calls on Mondays, client calls Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then no calls on Fridays, just as an example. So within Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, those were large containers of time or energy containers for connecting with people, having conversations, sales calls, that sort of thing. Now, my energy has shifted as I've gotten older, as I've settled into my business a little more. I am feeling more like I want to connect with people Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and a little bit on Thursday. So rather than do Thursday afternoon stuff, I found that I just didn't want to do any more after a certain point. Like I did not want to talk on the phone or be on Zoom after 1 o'clock on Thursday. So I still need that space, right, to make sure that my clients have room to schedule with me. And so I have time for networking calls. So I moved those over to Monday instead. So now I meet with people on Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursday mornings. And that is just working well with my energy right now. As a business owner, I do have that flexibility. I do have that opportunity to schedule that time for myself. And I recognize that if you're working for somebody else, you might not have that. However, where do you have little places of wiggle room? right? So you might look at your day and say, hey, I feel really energized like in the morning. Like I get to work and I am ready to go. That's when you have your energetic container for your most challenging things. And maybe that looks like the first hour and a half you come in for the day, you have your headphones on, you are focused, you are deep in work, you are getting that stuff done. And then after that, you can go like grab the coffee, make the rounds, do the social stuff that is actually in an office situation. So I want you to look at this in terms of a lot of flexibility can be had even within more rigid corporate structures. So when we look at our energetic containers, there's a question of what do you like to do? What do you need to do? And when do you feel most energized? So if you're a morning person, put your most important tasks, your big rocks in the morning. If you're more of an afternoon person, do that then. If you happen to be one of those people that has worked third shift forever, and you do really well between like 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. and you own your own business and all that, and you have that flexibility, then put your big rocks there. It's all good. So when we talk about energy management, a lot of times we don't understand how we are designed. And I am super excited to share with you that I am completing a human design certification course here in the next couple of weeks. And it has been so eye-opening. Just understanding more about how I am designed, more so than I did. Like I knew for a long time and have known for a long time that I'm a generator, I'm a 5-1 generator, and kind of what that means. And my current course that I am enrolled in, it's so fun to be like on the student side of things. It has opened my eyes, not only to how I operate, but how other people around me operate. So I'm digging into my clients' human design charts, if they're open to that. Pretty much everybody is, which is cool. And I even pulled up my husband's human design chart. And I'm like, oh my God, this makes total sense. I completely understand why he communicates the way he does, why I respond in a certain way to energies or, things in the environment, right? So it just adds a little extra dimension to the work that I've already been doing. And one of the big offerings that I love, my favorite reading type is the energy profile readings. And so that kind of came from my own personal desire to understand what all the different tests mean. So like Myers-Briggs and Enneagram and human design and different parts of my natal chart. And then my strengths as I see them in myself, kind of wanted to put it all together. So I did. Now, over time, as I've developed more and more, I have dropped the Myers-Briggs part. However, your energy profile reading with me includes your self-reflective strengths. So the strengths that you see in yourself, which is just really beautiful. Certain key points in your natal chart, your astrological chart, your human design, which takes your astrology into account. However, with the natal chart, I'm actually pulling out specific planets and houses and interactions there for deeper understanding. And also your Enneagram, if you know it. So looking at all of these things, putting them all together in this one reading to kind of present a whole profile of how you work best. So I always give recommendations on taking care of yourself, taking care of other people, moving forward in your work, that sort of thing. Because I find that when we understand our natural strengths, when we understand kind of how the planets are working for us, how the universe is here to support us and to serve us, we are more empowered. We learn just what we're capable of and then more. So if you're interested in that, I would love to offer that to you. It's a beautiful reading. It's super powerful. It shifts things for folks. It really changes their lives, which is awesome. I just love it. All right. I think that is it for this week, my friends. Thank you so much for tuning in. Remember, you can follow me on Instagram at It's Megan Winkler. I also have a Substack which you can find. Just search my name, Megan Winkler, on Substack. And there is, of course, a Patreon attached to this podcast and all of my work where you can come hang out and learn a little more about what I'm doing, get some freebies, get some behind the scenes stuff, and actually get to submit ideas for the podcast as well. So more about that here in a moment. If you have any suggestions, any questions, you want to reach out, please head over to meganwinkler.com. You can contact me right from the page. You can also see the offerings that are currently available. I would love to work with you. Thank you so much for listening. And until next time, stay magical and stay hydrated, my friends. See you soon.